America. An earthquake has been reported for the third time today east of San Jose, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The most recent quake was measured as a preliminary 3.3 magnitude earthquake and struck at about 6:20 p.m., about 6.2 miles northeast of San Jose. A smaller 2.6 magnitude earthquake was reported at about 12:30 p.m. in the same area. Costa Rica. Explore the experiences that evoke a sense of joy and well-being for Costa Rica. Guess where the entrepreneurship movement is thriving for Guy Fandonido. Before that,
I'm Scott McGrew in for Marcus Washington.
And I'm Chris Sanchez. Before we get to that, some breaking news in the South Bay you might already know about. A 3.3 magnitude earthquake, which hit about 30 minutes ago in the East San Jose foothills. We broke into programming just after it happened. Scott told you about it. We did speak with people who say they felt it too, including here in our newsroom. At this point, there are no reports of damage, but we want to know if you felt that quake.
It felt like shivering, like it shook for about 2-3 seconds, and then my coworkers, we all looked at each other. It was like, was that you shaking your leg? And we're like, no, not really. So then we were like, oh, it's an earthquake, and we all kind of got together. It's the 14th floor. Yeah, we were on the 14th floor, so it's pretty high. And we felt
in a series of earthquakes a lot of you have been feeling in the South Bay. ABC 7 News reporter Matt Keller live for us at USGS in Menlo Park. Matt?
Reggie, I was in the South Bay yesterday when these earthquakes hit, and guess what? I didn't feel a thing, and I know a lot of other people didn't feel a thing either. But we all want to know, is this a sign that a bigger earthquake is on the way? Here's USGS geophysicist Brian Kilgore.
Foreshocks do exist. They're real. Unfortunately, the science and technology today don't really allow us to look at any one earthquake and say, yes, this is a foreshock of something larger to come. Unfortunately, the foreshock determination comes after a larger earthquake occurred.
Yeah, you won't know if it's a foreshock until after the big quake. The first quake, though, yesterday, a 3.3 hit around 9:30 yesterday morning. 7 aftershocks followed, ranging from 1.9 and 3.3. Kilgore says the cluster of quakes occurred between the Calaveras Fault and the Hayward Fault in the eastern foothills of San Jose. He says the Hayward Fault is very active, and smaller earthquakes like this are to be expected. Kilgore also said the Hayward Fault is capable of a much bigger earthquake. In fact, the USGS says there is a 72% probability over the next 26 years that a 6.7 magnitude quake will happen here in the Bay Area. That's a good reminder to make sure you have your emergency plan and your emergency supplies. Reporting live in Menlo Park, Matt Keller, ABC 7 News.
Now to Italy, where the most powerful earthquake there in decades, striking an area already reeling from 3 other recent quakes. Take a look at this. The earth there falling away sharply, those cars nearly tossed over the cliff. The hilltop village behind it almost completely destroyed, and people running in panic yet again. ABC's Jennifer Eccleston is in Rome tonight.
The powerful quake causing buildings in central Italy to collapse in seconds. The power of the 6.6 magnitude tremor, the strongest in nearly 40 years. The third major rumble in just 1 week, sending terrified residents running into the streets again. In Norcia, near the epicenter, nuns carried to safety. Tonight, the dust clearing to reveal the historic 14th century basilica in ruins. Reports of at least 20 injured. It's just 5 days after back-to-back quakes hit the same region. Nearby Amatrice rocked again, 2 months since deadly tremors killed nearly 300. The view from above showing a town already utterly devastated, tonight reduced to ruins. The faces ripped off home after home.
There's no reason to think it's now suddenly magically going to stop. They're going to be continuing to have aftershocks. Some of them are going to be bigger.
Miraculously, no one was killed in this latest quake, but tonight, aftershocks roll through the area, a population on edge and on the move.
All right, so brace yourself for the big one. That is the warning from a leading scientist who says California is overdue for a major earthquake. So just how big are they talking here when we come back? Meanwhile, California's next big earthquake is coming, folks. You've been hearing it for so many years, but according to a leading scientist who says the Southern California section of the San Andreas Fault
is now primed for some action. San Andreas is the state's longest fault and one of the most dangerous. Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt live in Los Angeles for us. So, Jonathan, what are they seeing in this fault at this point?
Well, some pretty stark warnings, Martha. We haven't had a big one along the southern section of the San Andreas Fault, as earthquake scientists define a big one, since about 1857. But there's obviously been a lot of earthquake activity around the globe recently. You'll remember the terrible pictures we have seen from Ecuador, for instance. So now they're saying San Andreas Fault long overdue. And when you look at a map of the San Andreas Fault, it's about 800 miles in total in length, right along California. But it's that southern section near Los Angeles that they're concerned about. You see San Bernardino and Riverside marked there, suburbs of LA, and they say that that section looks ready to go. The quote, in fact, from Thomas Jordan, director of the Southern California Earthquake Center, was this, quote, "The springs on the San Andreas system have been wound very, very tight, and the Southern Andreas Fault in particular looks like it's locked, loaded, and ready to go." Frightening words, and every earthquake expert we've been hearing from in probably the last decade, Martha, has been saying the same thing. The one thing they can't agree on is exactly when it's coming. Martha?
Yeah, and boy, would that be helpful. So how bad do they think, looking at where this is, it could be? And has anything, or can anything be done to mitigate the damage?
Well, first of all, on the preparations, they say that we should be prepared for an 8-magnitude earthquake. Obviously, that is absolutely huge. They put out a simulation, in fact, of what the shaking might look like in the LA area. And a 2008 U.S. Geological Survey report said that if we had something like a 7.8 earthquake, for instance, it could cause something like 1,800 deaths, 50,000 injuries, and something like $200 billion in damage to the Southern California area. So this is a major problem. But for a
Earthquake, light, shaking expected in 59 seconds.
You're listening to California's Earthquake Early Warning Notification System.
These are going to be for earthquakes of significance that are going to result in enough shaking.
California already has some 570 earthquake sensors, but when the Napa quake struck 2 years ago, seismologists were unable to get the warning out to the public.
The two sensors closest to the epicenter of the earthquake were not fast enough to contribute to the earthquake early warning system.
But today, the Office of Emergency Services announced $10 million in new state funding, thanks to a bill just signed by Governor Brown. It will nearly double the number of sensors statewide to 1,100, providing fire departments with extra time to react.
Well, minutes or even seconds of early notification could help us take some critical immediate actions, like getting the doors to the station open, pulling rigs out.
And early warnings can also help mass transit systems like BART in dealing with 64 trains during the peak commute.
About 40 of those 64 trains are going to be traveling about 70 miles an hour. If I have 20 seconds of warning, I can reduce that down to 10 miles an hour.
But state officials warn today it will take at least 2 years to roll out the new system, which will take a massive overhaul of technology.
Most people assume that they'll get the earthquake early warning on their cell phone, and that's certainly a goal, but the system is not currently capable of delivering fast notifications to millions of people.
Obviously in the city of San Francisco, again, as we take a look at that, that appears to be what would be the Marina District.
The entire upper deck of the Cypress structure, that is the section of highway that connects the Bay Bridge to the Nimitz, Highway 880, it just seemed to collapse during the shaker. You could see those ripples in the road. I'm guessing, but what I'm afraid of, and the information we seem to be getting seems to confirm this, that those ripples in small part are caused by vehicles trapped underneath. We have no idea how many vehicles were trapped underneath. If you could see how violent that shaking must have been.
Because of
for power outages and wire services are not coming in with other reports?
Well, we're told that this earthquake today was measured at between 6.5 and 7 on the Richter scale.
Power failure, therefore the game will be postponed. We ask that you hold on to...
We have been told that there has been some dramatic rescues in the area. This is what you're looking at right now, the cypress structure. People have risked their lives to crawl up under those two compact pieces of highway to find survivors, and they have brought people out alive.
We were told that this person in here now that they're going for, and we don't know.
Thanks for watching. Now, we've been looking into the concerns surrounding that large fault or crack that's in the ground that recently opened up near and behind that shopping center.
Our Lauren Hanley is at the scene there at the Logan Town Center in Blair County. So, Lauren, what's the latest?
Well, Carolyn, if you take a look at the large crack in the ground behind me, you can see that a series of power lines actually runs along the base of the mountain here. So depending on how the ground shifts, we could have an even bigger problem. We spoke with a Logan Township police officer who was keeping an eye on the area early this afternoon. He actually told us to move away from the power lines in case the ground shifts and knocks them down. He told us these power lines have anywhere from 40,000 to 90,000 volts running through them. If they come down, the whole area will be electrified. Now that means all of the stores that sit back along the mountain here will lose power and will be in a charged area. Anyone standing in that area would be in danger. But we're not sure how quickly the ground is moving here. The officer told us he heard the crack grows further apart by 2 inches every day. The surveyor from the EADS group we spoke with says it's moving, but very gradually. He didn't say there was any immediate danger or that part of Brush Mountain would break off and come crashing down. If anything, it would keep slowly sliding apart. Now, we can't seem to get a straight answer on what exactly will happen with this area. We've heard a couple of things. One, they might dig out part of the mountain, but then we've also heard they might try to anchor it, as you've seen in areas along 99. But in the meantime, we'll see what happens with this area, if there are any plans, and we'll bring you the latest. Reporting live in Logan Township, Lauren Hanley, WTAJ News.
In March 2011, the world watched in awe and horror as a colossal tsunami ravaged eastern Japan. The result of a 9.0 magnitude earthquake. Entire cities were washed away. Millions stranded without power or water. 15,000 died. It was an otherworldly event, thousands of miles away. Thank goodness, many of us thought. It couldn't happen here. But it could happen here. In fact, scientists say it's a question of when, not if, a devastating earthquake, followed by a huge tsunami, strikes the continental United States, right here in the Pacific Northwest.
This would be like 5 or 6 Katrinas all at once, up and down from California to Canada would be the closest thing I can think of.
It may sound like a Hollywood disaster movie. I see it! But it's not. This is the future for the region's 7 million people, says Chris Goldfinger, a paleoseismologist at Oregon State University. In fact, his research shows much of the region is overdue for a major quake. The last one was back in 1700, long before there were large cities right in harm's way.
If it happens anytime soon, it would just devastate the area.
Goldfinger estimates there's a 1 in 3 chance the quake will strike sometime in the next 50 years.
Would you say that we're prepared for something like this? We're not completely unprepared, but we're pretty darn close. On a scale of 1 to 10, we're probably a little shy of 1 at this point.
This is Ground Zero, the 700-mile-long area off the Pacific coast called the Cascadia Subduction Zone, where the North American tectonic plate meets another plate known as the Juan de Fuca.
The dark image we're seeing here is literally sliding under
the lighter image.
That's right. So they're converging, but still stuck. So what happens is the weaker plate, which is North America, buckles. And eventually, something's going to give. So the coastline that's been jacked up over 500-ish years or